The reality is their desire for you to stay safe is also by default a desire to crush your dreams. And it's not that they're trying to hurt you, but the reality is they are creating a lot of regrets, and you need somebody outside of that that's going to build you up and say, go for it. And if that is your family and friends or your mom and dad, you are so fortunate to have that in your life, to have somebody that says, you know what, go and do it. And I hope that's the mom and dad that my wife and I are for our kids. But I'm also a realist and realize that's just not common for most people in this world. Most of the people they're going to be the naysayers. The people who love them the most are the biggest critics of their dreams.
Today we're going a little bit more philosophical, diving into something we all have in common: big dreams. Kind of dreams that can either become amazing memories or painful regrets. It's one thing to dream, but turning those dreams into reality is where the magic happens. At the heart of it, gaining control of our finances is so that we can live out that bucket list, not have a bucket of what ifs. I'm Nate Crannell, joined each episode by Mike Neubauer. Together we built Grand Vision Family Office, helping physicians break free of living in the rat race before it's too late, so that they can live the life that they imagine today, not just after retirement. We are the resource for the physicians who ask themselves this question: why wait for retirement? So Mike, we're going to get a little philosophical today, like I mentioned. Going to get a little deep, really get to the heart of why people plan, why people invest, why people want to build wealth and create financial freedom. It's so that they can dream and live out those dreams. So just to get started, I see those beautiful mountains behind you. This is like the perfect episode for you, I think. We've known each other for 18 years now. And out of anyone that I know, you've been living that life in a purposeful way and bringing many of your dreams to fruition. So like common culture says, wait until you're 60, have those golden years, build up that nest egg, enjoy all the fun parts of retirement. But how have you been able to live that way and live the way that you do starting at a much earlier age?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to two things: is really one, controlling the finances, and then two, just believing that it's possible. So back up, maybe, it's been a while now, I'd have to look, but it's probably been about 10 years or so. And I was definitely chasing that rat race, chasing a big dollar amount, trying to just make a lot of money, and didn't really have a purpose for it, didn't really have a plan. And then when I look back, it's crazy now, because I was just spinning my wheels trying to grow money in the bank account, but it was honestly just stressful. It wasn't creating any of that joy. And I kind of got, my world turned upside down when I found a mentor, and he basically showed me and said, you want to live life. You don't want a lot of money. You just simply want that money so you can live life. So then that really turned things for me on the financial aspect of, when I started thinking of that why wait for retirement motto, because if I can control the finances and I make good money today, there's no reason to put off life today, because that's really the purpose of the money. So at first it started with learning how to control those finances and learning how to use them for today. That's one of the problems we talk about with putting into the 401k. Not that it's a bad thing, but everybody maxes out all these retirement accounts, and then that money's locked away until the day they retire. So by default, as soon as they put that money in there, they're basically giving up on their dreams today. So that's kind of just an example of the financial side. And then on the other side of things was just believing those dreams were possible. So I used to have a lot of dreams, and I struggled to figure out how to make them a reality in my head. And then I got great advice one time, and we were in a room. We did a mastermind before. My wife and I were in this mastermind group, and I was sharing these dreams and said, it just doesn't seem possible. It seems like almost pointless to dream about this, because how could it be? And then somebody asked me a question and said, let me ask you, if it was possible, how would you do it? And just that simple phrase canceled everything out that said this isn't possible, and just said simply, if it was, how would you do it? So then it blocked that filter in my brain. I started looking at if it was possible, and ever since that day, the other thing that he said in another mastermind that I was in the one time, and we're struggling like, man, this is really hard. And he said, if it was easy, how would you do it? And just those two simple questions, really has helped me turn around and say, all right, so now we got the finances in control. I understand that. But now these dreams, my dreams keep getting bigger and bigger. And you still have to ask yourself, all right, this is a crazy dream, but if it was possible, how would you do it? And all of a sudden that starts coming to fruition, and you figure out how you would do it. Honestly, I think for the mentors that taught me that phrase and show me how to get control of the money, but really those are the two things, was just stop putting the money locked up in a way that says, one day when I'm 60, I can enjoy this. Start focusing on how to use that money to live today, and then start believing that it's possible. And man, you look back and holy cow, my life has been full of dreams that have turned into reality and now memories.
For sure. So after you were asked that question by your mentor, like, if it was possible, how would you do it? What was kind of that first big dream that you had that you actually took some action on? And how did it feel after that dream then became, a memory?
Yeah, so really three, but I'll share the top two that come to mind right away. Is the first one, when I heard this advice, we were on a mission trip for a week. And I figured that's just what people do with mission trips. You go for a week, you come back, that's what it looks like. But we fell in love with Guatemala. We were down there, we met awesome people. And somebody said, you should come back. I said, it would be awesome for my daughter to go to school here. That would be so cool. She would learn Spanish. And the school down there was like, yeah, you should do it. Why not? And I was like, I don't know why not. Like, I just said it out loud because it was a dream, but how the heck could that? I mean, nobody's kid goes to school in Guatemala, that's what I'm thinking. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, if it was possible, what would that look like? So Morgan and I started talking, and we said, well, in January is when school starts in Guatemala. We could probably get out of town for winter for a month or two. That'd be awesome. So then we talked to the school and said, hey, how would this look? And next thing you know, we're booking airline tickets, and we're living in Guatemala for a few months, and my daughter went to kindergarten in Guatemala. And it just started as like, man, that would be so cool, wouldn't it? As kind of a joke. And fast forward, from August to January of that year, and we were living that dream. So that's what it took. That one, the big thing was really getting the business dialed in to say, if I'm going to be gone for 2 months, what does this look like? How can I run a business from afar for 2 months? So that was kind of really my hurdle, but we just said, if this was possible, how would I do it? And then I just started taking action and doing it.
And what was the other dream?
And the second dream, so I'll show you I don't know if you can see. I'll spin around here. But you can see our camper and the four-wheelers in the background there. So we're out in Colorado right now in Peaceful Valley. But about 3 years ago, we've always loved camping. It's such a nice thing to get out and just enjoy. But we used to bring the bikes and, a smaller camper, and we definitely loved it. But we saw the one time this truck there with a trailer and all these four-wheelers, and we have four-wheelers at home. And they're just having a blast riding four-wheelers through the trails and everything. And the kids are like, that's so cool. And I thought, man, wouldn't that be awesome if we had a toy hauler that we could bring all these four-wheelers with us and just go tearing up these trails with the kids. And man, the memories that we would have, for me and for the kids, I absolutely love it as well. But wouldn't that be so cool? And we have 7 kids, so we got 9 people. How are we going to get a vehicle that pulls a toy hauler? How are we going to fit all these four-wheelers? What is this going to look like? And same thing, it was just, all right, if this was possible, how would we do it? And you've seen, we got a semi that we use to pull the trailer, but that's how, if it was possible, that's how it would look. So we just said, if it was possible, well, we would need something extraordinary that most people don't use for this task, and we had to find that. Financially, we had to figure out, okay, what does a toy hauler actually cost? What would that vehicle actually cost? How do we get the finances in order to actually live this dream? And really, it's just kind of taking a dream, that philosophical, like we were talking about, taking that philosophy and just saying, let's actually write this down on paper and figure out, if it was possible, how would we do it? How would we do it financially? How would we do it time-wise? How do we actually make this happen? And you start to realize when you write it down that there actually is a path to achieving that dream.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest thing, we say philosophical, and I don't want the whole episode to feel like, oh, every single dream that you have, go out and chase it, and that's what you have to do. It needs to be those purposeful ones. Like we were kind of talking before, like, people have dreams, huge dreams, right? Like, who wouldn't want to be a billionaire and own a yacht and private island and all those types of things? But like, I think the purposeful dreams that actually improve your quality of life. And people just put those off because I don't know how I do that, or I don't have the money for that, or, I don't have the time because I'm, working 50, 60 hours a week. So like, that dream is cool. And my life would be better if that came, a reality, but I'm just going to put it off, maybe in a few years. Right. And I think that as you slowly push things down the line, that dream fades a little bit. And then it's just like, well, life's not terrible. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. And just that dream crushing mentality, or the inability to create new dreams then, I think is detrimental, not people's mental health, but also just their quality of life. What are your thoughts around that? Like, how has your quality of life improved since you started chasing some of your dreams?
Yeah. Oh man, two things. So first, I'll tell you that it's not necessarily that you can't chase all dreams, but when you don't chase any dreams, you start to lose that clarity of what is actually a dream and what is just kind of out there that everybody else is doing. So you just say it's my dream too. So when you start pursuing dreams, all of a sudden you get very clear on what are actual dreams you want to achieve. So maybe you lay in bed and you have 20 different random dreams and you're like, I don't know if that's actually a dream. Once you actually get real clear with yourself and say, this is the dream, all you think about is how to achieve that dream. All of the extra little fluffy ones, they just don't even pop into your head. And then once you achieve that dream, the next one, they kind of start a little fluffy, but you get clarity, and all of a sudden you're on to the next one. And you start choosing the ones that seem impossible, and all those fluffy ones that were meant to just fill brain space because you thought that big one was impossible, all of those go away, and you get very clear and very focused. So that's the first thing is, it's hard if you've never really truly went after a dream to understand that, but the moment you go after one of those big ones, you'll realize how true that is, that you no longer are distracted by the shiny object dreams. You have a very purposeful path that you're taking. So that's the first thing. The other thing, this just crushes me, and I've become more and more, which, it makes the dreams become more and more reality as well, but suppressing your soul, that is the biggest thing, is that idea that life isn't terrible, life is good enough. Good enough kills way more dreams. If life was terrible, you would actually be more motivated to go chase your dreams. Just a good enough life, or not that terrible of a life, crushes way more dreams than a terrible life ever would. And so many people get content with just settling and saying, it's good enough. I make good money. My kids go to a decent school. We do a vacation. It's good enough. And you put those dreams aside, and I really think those are the ones that turn into regrets. If life was terrible, either two options happen. You either go and chase that dream with everything you have because life is terrible, or if life is that bad, then you just know that you don't have the finances right now, and it doesn't hurt to not go chase that dream because you know you have to focus on other things. But when life is just good enough and you settle for that, then you have to deal with knowing that that was possible. You just voluntarily gave up on that dream. And you have to settle with the fact knowing that all the other dreams never came true because you didn't go after that first one. So life is good enough, or life just isn't that terrible. Man, that is that's basically what I call it, soul suppressing. That's your soul trying to come out and go chase those dreams, and you just kind of keep stuffing it down saying, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. But really, those dreams are within you, and it's true. Life is not that bad, but the dreams are way more amazing than you would ever realize when you start living life that way.
Yeah, I think your second point is spot on. As you were saying that, you think back to, and you and I watch a lot of Instagram reels. That's how we figure out some of our marketing and, what's going on in the world. But I always see reels where it's like an interview of a successful business owner or an athlete or someone that's an actor, a movie actor. And they always ask like, oh, tell me about how you grew up. And they're all, very often it's like, my family was poor, one of my parents wasn't around, I had a rough childhood, all of these things that then they've overcome those to become successful, right? And so I think you make a great point that, if you are in a bad situation, you're more likely to be motivated to follow those dreams and to get out of where you are versus, middle class America where, things just aren't so bad, but they're not your dreams. They're not where you want to be, but they're not awful, right? And so it's easy in that space to be soul suppressed with your words. So I think you make a great point there that if you keep that mentality, if you keep soul suppressing, regardless of your situation, when you're listening to this episode right now and it's regardless of what you got going on, and if you're hearing us say like, things aren't that bad, we're okay. If you're feeling that way, be mindful then that, if you've got dreams, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't chase them or that you don't have a bad enough situation that you're not allowed to chase them. Just be mindful and cognizant that where you are and where you want to be, there's definitely a bridge there that you can cross.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the biggest things for me too is, with the kids, chasing your dreams, man, that sets them up for success more than any school, more than any money ever could. That mindset to try to learn it as an adult, everybody that's listening to this episode is going to be an adult. And they realize, man, is it hard to change that mindset now that I'm an adult? But you think about your kids growing up and just witnessing that mindset, and they won't have to learn that. So we so focus on getting a good education, making sure they're financially taken care of. But then they watch us grow up with that's a good enough life, it's fine. And we think about, is that the life we'd want for our kids? Well, we want our kids one day to be, say, 25 years old and say, man, what are your dreams? What are you going to do in this world? And they say, I'm just shooting for like an okay, good enough life. I mean, it's fine. Because that's really the life that we're portraying to them. And we all know that you could say what you want, but the kids are going to do what you do, not what you say. And if we go out and truly model that life and truly model the fact that when you have a dream, you don't just shut it down and say, nah, that's stupid, that would never work. You say, hey, that's a crazy dream. If you were going to make that possible, how would you do it? Let's just say, hypothetically, if that dream was possible, how would you do it? And you start teaching your kids at a young age, they will grow up with that mindset, and literally the sky is the limit at that point.
Just had that conversation with my son. Well, all my kids were in the car, but specifically towards my son just a few days ago. So you mentioned you're in Colorado. We, both of us, actually just left Wyoming, right? So with the Grand Vision Family Office, we do a few retreats a year. This one was our family retreat where we have any members, any physician families that can join us and bring their kids. We were out in Grand Teton National Park in western Wyoming. Absolutely beautiful to do it out there in early October. And we had several members that said that was one of the best trips that they've ever been on. And I say all that because we were talking about dreams. It probably sparked from the conversation that you and I had while we were in Wyoming that is now sparking this episode. But as we were leaving, we were kind of reflecting. We were driving in the car, talking about the trip and their favorite things like that. And we were passing all this construction. And my wife goes, my son's name is Macklin. My wife goes, Macklin, like, you really love trucks. And he talks about trucks nonstop. And as we're driving down the road, he's pointing out, semis and excavators and, all these different things. And my wife goes, man, I really hope that you grow up and you follow your dream of trucks, because you know absolutely everything about them. You talk about them all the time. I hope you keep that passion and you turn it into something amazing, like dream big about it. And his response was, absolutely, I'm going to own a big trucking business when I get older. And it was just like, I'd never heard him say something like that. Like, to start a sentence with absolutely, I thought that was cool. But for him to just be like, absolutely, I'm going to start a big trucking business when I get older. Like, I hope that dream doesn't get suppressed because life is okay. Or even if, as my wife and I, and you guys as well, living out our dreams and the things that we're set out to do, like, I hope that he's not like, oh, well, I'm already living some dreams vicariously through my parents. I don't really need to dream anymore. Like, they're kind of doing that for me. And so I think that idea that you can nurture that through your kids at a young age, teach them, have dreams and then follow dreams. And there are ways to do it, kind of back to your question of like, if it was possible, how would you do it? Keep questioning your kids in that same way, because biggest dreamers out there are kids, I think. And so those dreams get suppressed by, you're not tall enough, you're not fast enough, you're not smart enough to be able to do these things. You're not in a position to be able to do these dreams. So just follow the norm, go do what everyone else does, and just live an average life.
Yeah, for sure, man. The especially like you said, kids dream naturally, and the reality is the realness of the world, we want to push that on them, and we don't even realize a lot of times, and we crush those dreams. So they'd say, I want to own a big trucking company, and say, well, that's great, but maybe we just focus on, maybe you could work for the truck, or you could get a good job, or that job doesn't pay a lot of money. Maybe you want to be a doctor, whatever the case may be. And we think we're trying to redirect them, but really the kid just hears that dream is, slightly being crushed. And we're trying to do the best. We're not trying to put down that dream. We're trying to be real with them. But the reality is that our realness isn't necessarily the true realness. That's just what we've experienced by not following the dreams. They may have total potential to follow that dream and make it a reality. And the one thing that I think is very important, and bringing up the Jackson trip, I always try now to make sure my kids recognize when dreams come true. So we were in Jackson Hole, sitting there in the hot tub, just talking with the kids. And I said, listen, do you remember when we drove by those four-wheelers and that camper? And I said, we thought, man, wouldn't that be cool? And the whole drive home, when we had our van and our smaller camper, we talked about, wouldn't that be so cool? How would we do it? Where would we go if we had these? We just made the dream so exciting for everybody. And I said, do you remember 3 years of just talking about that dream, watching YouTube videos, searching on the internet, showing photos to each other of, look at this four-wheeler, I want this truck, I want this. 3 years of that, and now we're sitting in a hot tub enjoying the fruits of that dream. We literally have all those scrolled memories, all those ideas, those passions. 3 years later, we're sitting in the hot tub enjoying that. You know, and we talk about those things because it's so easy during that 3 years of waiting for that dream to come to reality. It's easy to give up, or it's easy to say, see, I told you that dream couldn't come true. You know, trust me, I know I had family and friends like, this guy's always dreaming. Yeah, here's another idea, a big semi and a camper. Yeah, we'll see. And 3 years later, I pull up with it, you know, and it's like, the difference is most people put their own timeline on the dream. I just have the dream and I want to achieve it. I don't really set a timeline. I want it to happen as soon as possible. But the timeline is kind of irrelevant. That's something I don't necessarily have control of. But as long as I stay true to that dream, I know it's going to come to fruition. And then something as simple as I even talk with the kids when we're driving out here, there's even smaller dreams that we can help focus on so we don't have to wait 3 years to have this. And we wanted to see a moose. That's what the kids wanted in Wyoming. There's signs everywhere. It says, watch out for moose. And the kids were like, how cool would that be? I want to see a moose. That's so cool. And this dream was for 2 days, sitting there those first 2 nights, no moose, no moose. Man, I hope we see a moose. Then we're walking on that trail, hiking with everybody, come around a corner, a bull moose, a cow moose, and her baby calf standing there, maybe 10, 20 yards away from us.
Yeah.
So for 2 to 3 days, dreaming that we might get to see a moose, all of a sudden 2 days later, that dream, better than you could ever imagine, is standing there. And I'm like, so that night then I told them, remember 3 days ago we were dreaming of seeing a moose. Today we got the coolest moose sighting ever. I mean, we come around a corner and there's a moose in the wild standing right there. I mean, you couldn't ask for that dream to come true in a more exciting way. I am super excited to introduce to you the Doctors and Dollars 5-Day Financial Challenge. I'm Mike Neubauer, I'm CEO of Grand Vision Companies, and I'm the one that you see on the Wealth Wednesday and Daily Dollar episodes with Nate. So Nate and I are partnering again to do something even more exciting, which is the 5-Day Challenge. We're taking the best of all of our episodes, all of our expertise and knowledge, and we're condensing it into an impactful and purposeful 5-day presentation, 1 hour per day, for 5 days, to give you everything you need to build that foundation for your financial future. So if you're looking to gain the pieces, you want those puzzle pieces and find out how they fit in your financial plan, head over to the Doctors and Dollars website, join us on the 5-Day Challenge. We're putting it together for free, so you got nothing to lose. We look forward to seeing you on the inside.
Yeah, and I think timing is everything, right? And maybe that, going back to your soul suppressing, I think people assume that if they have a dream and they start taking little actions to get to that dream, if it doesn't come immediately, maybe there's just maybe it just wasn't meant to be, right? I've tried, I put forth some effort towards this dream. It's not happening. Maybe it's just not meant to be. And people will then, again, self-suppress that dream. Versus your moose example, you started dreaming and then it happened. So then it's like that dream then became a memory that much quicker. And I think that was really that's the genesis of this conversation. Really goes back to the conversation you and I were having in Wyoming about, like, once you have a dream, there's 2 outcomes. Either it becomes a memory, you took little actions, you took big actions to make that dream a reality, or you took no action and then that dream turns into regret. So it's either memory or regret, or really the 2 outcomes of a dream. Talk about regrets and what that does to people who maybe had a dream that, I mean, from someone on the outside could be looking at it and be like, man, that's a good dream and it's really not that hard to get to. You just didn't do it. What kind of goes on psychologically when you're thinking about regrets of dreams?
Well, I think the regret piece comes, and I've really done the best that I can to avoid those regrets now that I realize them. And, we're still young enough, everybody who listens to this episode is still young enough to go and solve those regrets before it gets too late. But really, that's what we were talking about, and that's what I talk with the kids is, literally it starts as a dream. It's just a thought in your head, and I talk about the four-wheelers and the toy hauler camper. That was simply a thought in our head. We drove by and we saw it. It was just a simple little dream. And then we started scrolling Facebook. That was literally 3 years of watching YouTube videos and simply scrolling Facebook that just kept that dream alive until one day when it finally, the stars aligned and the dream worked out and we were able to pull the trigger and make that a reality. But the whole time when we got that voice in our head, it's just simply a dream. It's just whether do we take action steps to make this a reality, or do we put that off and just not take any action? And that's really what turns into either a memory or that regret. So now fast forward, and this is where that conversation came from. We're sitting in the hot tub, and I said, man, remember 3 years ago, we had that dream and we thought, how cool would it be? We're living that dream right now. And I told them, imagine if we didn't take action. Imagine if we drove by that, we spent 3 years just watching photos and dreaming and sending Instagram reels to each other, and we never took action on that dream. We wouldn't be sitting in this hot tub, and wherever we were sitting, we would be discussing that as a regret. You know, the kids would be older, they'd be going off to college, that time, that opportunity of time would have passed us by, and we'd be sitting there going, man, what if we would have bought that toy hauler? What memories would we have made if we would have had those four-wheelers? How cool would that have been? And the conversation would have all been about what if and what could have been, and now the kids are older. So, I mean, that's really what it comes down to, is when you have that dream, and you do have to be focused and have that clarity to make sure it is the dream. But it's just whether you decide, what if this is possible? What action steps would I take? Or if you don't do that, if you take no action towards it, then that just builds up. And one day you're going to see somebody else doing that similar dream. You're going to go somewhere and see somebody at the toy hauler and four-wheelers and think, man, they look like they're having a great time. That would have been awesome to relive that memory with my kids, but now they're too old, they're out of the house. And that's when that regret hits you, when you see somebody else living that dream and you think back to that moment, man, I could have done that, I should have done that, I just didn't take any action. And the problem is you just never know. All you know is if you don't take action, you will regret it. But you don't know if you're going to see somebody living that dream in 2 years and have that regret. You don't know if it's going to be when your kid walks across the high school graduation stage and you think, man, that's it, I missed that window. You don't know if it's going to be when you're laying on your deathbed and you think, man, there's no time now, but I really wish I would have gone back and done that. So the point being, it doesn't matter when that regret hits. If you have a dream, you just got to put the action steps into place and start taking action, because no matter when that regret hits, it's going to hurt. And no matter when that dream is achieved, it's going to be magical once you achieve it. So there's just no reason to say, I'm not going to take action. You might as well go for the dream, because worst case scenario, you just say, hey, I tried as hard as I could. I mean, at least you don't have the regret at that point, you know?
For sure. Yeah, and you actually kind of reiterated my last comment, which is like timing is everything, right? And it even goes with the regret side. Like, if you don't take action and follow that dream, eventually there's going to be a regret. Timing is everything on that. Like, you just don't know when that regret's going to hit you, but it will hit you at some point. If that dream hasn't come to fruition, there will be regret at some point. And whether it's 3 days later, 3 years later, 30 years, it's going to hit you at some point. You're going to be like, man, I wish I would have done that. But I think you made another good point when you're talking about sitting in the hot tub and kind of reflecting like, hey, guys, you remember when we had this dream? I think it's really important to keep dreaming while you're taking the steps to bring that dream to reality. Does that make sense? Like, to keep to keep it going.
I'll share that.
Yeah.
I'll share that exact example. So we're sitting in the hot tub. I'll finish off the story. So right now, my dream is to move, I would say, to Flagstaff. My dream is to move somewhere where this is normal life. We don't have to drive 18 hours across the country to live this lifestyle, because this lifestyle is just amazing for all of us. We flourish and we just love this lifestyle. So as we were sitting there, we were talking about, would you want to live in Flagstaff, Arizona? Would that be a cool place to live? And we were talking about this dream that came to reality. And then everybody was excited about this new dream of, what if we just lived in Flagstaff? That'd be so cool. And we were talking about this dream, and I said, think about this. So this is another key point, is when you say, if it was possible, how would this dream come to reality? The other key is to imagine that future self living out that dream, because then it almost feels real. It takes out that this is impossible feeling of it, because you just close your eyes and you can imagine yourself living out that dream, and all of a sudden your brain thinks, all right, we can maybe do that. So I told the kids, as we were reflecting on this dream of the camper and the four-wheelers, and we're looking at some houses and talking about Flagstaff, and it's surrounded by national forests with four-wheeler trails. And I said, one day, I had the four boys with me. I said, one day, we are going to be sitting on four-wheelers off in the woods on some trail, and we're all going to stop. And if you've ever been on a four-wheeler, you know how this is. Everybody pulls up next to each other, and you talk about the crazy view you just saw, or the animal, or whatever. You reflect on that moment, and we're all going to stop on four-wheelers, take our helmets off, and look at each other, and be like, you remember when this dream first sparked? Remember we were sitting in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and we had this dream that we were going to live a life in Flagstaff and grow up living this outdoor life. Remember, that was just a thought, just a dream, sitting in that hot tub, and look at us now sitting on four-wheelers, reflecting back on the moment that that dream sparked. And so in that moment, we're having that dream, we're sitting in the hot tub, but we portrayed it and talked about it as if it already happened, and talked about how we're going to reflect back and say, man, so cool that we had that dream and went out and made it a reality. Because having that conversation, I mean, that almost sets us up for guaranteed success now, to go out and go for that moment in time. The house in Flagstaff, whether it be Flagstaff or Colorado, all of those are really minor details, because what we're shooting for, the real dream, is that moment off in the woods on some four-wheeler trail where we all stop and we look at each other and say, man, remember when this was just a dream, and today this is our life.
Yeah. And now you have 4 boys that are going to hold you accountable to it. So now, now that you brought it up and it's like, hey, we're going to have this moment at some point in the future, you really can't let the ball drop. So you said, like, having that conversation was kind of a pivotal point. And it's hard not to bring it to a reality simply by having that conversation, or, you know, everyone viewing that memory. But now that you've got, I mean, you have 4 sons. And so it's like, they're all going to hold you accountable and say, hey, let's keep thinking about this. What do we got to do? Let's keep moving forward until we get to that four-wheeler moment. I think that's pretty cool. That's one reason why I think like our Grand Vision family office is starting to grow and become successful so quickly, is you and I hold each other accountable. Like, the family office itself was a dream that we had. We kept talking about it. How are we going to do this? How are we going to build it? And even as we started building it and talking to physicians and bringing in new members, I remember us having a conversation. It was like, man, we need to do retreats. We need to get people out there and do some of these bucket list trips that no one would ever book for themselves. Like, where would we go? And we started rattling off all of these places that we would want to take people. And how cool would this be if we, you know, did this and did that? One of them was the Grand Tetons. I mean, I think we said Yellowstone, but like getting people out camping in cabins in the woods, doing nature hikes, seeing, you know, moose from 20 yards away. Like, we talked about that, gosh, it was about a year ago. And the fact that, you know, we kind of talked about this in Wyoming, but like, we were hiking and we kind of looked at each other like, man, this is what we talked about. This is pretty cool that we mentioned a trip like this, or doing trips like this. And here we are with, I think we had 4 families, right, from the family office there. We had 4 families with us that all of them said, hey, we would probably never book this trip. Like, booking Jackson Hole, Wyoming, being in the Grand Teton National Park, like, it's cool to think about, and we always, you know, see pictures and stuff of it, but like, this is not a trip that we would have booked ourselves. And so, like, super thankful to the family office that we put that all together and brought everyone in. And man, it was just such a cool feeling just to not only realize that we'd built that trip and got everyone together, but to then, you know, have that reciprocated back to us, for people to tell us, like, this is great that you have this, because this is not something that we would have done. That's exactly why we were doing what we were doing.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things of the family office that people miss, is everybody thinks just basic financial advice. There isn't like having a financial advisor, and honestly, the finances are probably the easiest part of it. It's living life and bringing those dreams to reality, and figuring out the finances is easy, but then how do you take those finances and actually go live that dream? And that's the thing too, people are busy, you know, so that's another purpose of why we did it, is we realize that people are busy. Even if you have the finances and you realistically could have the time, it's a whole nother aspect to go and organize and plan and pick a destination and decide where you're going to stay and what are you going to do when you get there. So that's, you know, a huge part. I think when people join the family office, they don't put a lot of, you know, value on that aspect. But I think then once they're in the family office, they realize, oh, wow, that almost carries as much value as all the financial support and resources, because all you have to do is get the dates off of work and click submit on the order form, and you're there. You know, we put out, hey, here's the dates, here's where we're staying, here's what we're doing. All you have to do is get off work and meet us there. We'll take care of the rest. And I think that freedom and that flexibility is really what people, they don't realize that it stops them from going on vacation, but it is way more of a hindrance than people would realize of going after dreams, is all those little, you know, call it logistical, organizational aspects of it. Do we have to rent a car? Are we going to get food? Where are we going to stay? What hikes are we going to do? We got to research all this. That is enough friction to stop you from going after that trip. So we tell people about that when they join the family office, and like, okay, yeah, you'll plan a trip. That's great. And it's like, no, we plan multiple trips a year, and you would not believe how convenient it is to just simply get the days off work, and that's all the planning you have to do. The rest of it is just going to make memories.
Yeah, 100%. Like and I think you made a great point. Like the financial planning, the advisement, the different wealth strategies that we help members put into place, ultimately is to give them more freedom, right? More passive time to take the time off of work and to go out and do these trips. And so, it's really just an outcome, from the initial cause, which is, hey, I'm not happy with what I'm doing. I joined the family office a lot of people join the family office saying, like, I want to build wealth and pay less taxes and create a legacy for my family. It's like, those are some of the tools, but what you really want is just the passive time to go out and be able to hike in Western Wyoming, on a gorgeous October afternoon, and just breathe that mountain air and enjoy yourself. And so it's like getting those finances in order, like you said a second ago, like that's kind of the easy part. We can figure out your financial plan and where you need to be and what you need to be doing. But like we set that up so that you can go out and enjoy these adventures and spend more time with your family and, more passive time doing the things that you love to do. And that's really just honestly, that's the ultimate goal. And to me, that's a beautiful thing, because it's like, people don't realize that's what they really want until they do it. And we had some feedback from a few of the families that were in Wyoming with us that was like, this is what we're doing this for. Like, this is why I'm a primary care doctor. This is why I'm a surgeon, is to help people, but also build a life that I can go out and enjoy myself, when I'm not, under the knife with someone. So I just think it's totally cool to be able to help people build that experience.
And what a better doctor people are, if you're a physician, what a better physician you are when you walk into that room and you just got a refreshing break in Grand Teton National Park and your batteries are recharged and you're fresh and no stress. I mean, you're just better at helping other people in your job when you have those breaks in your life versus committing your whole life to that job. That gray stress that weighs on you, I mean, it does affect your performance, whether you like it or not. There's no doubt that somebody with the same skill level who is stressed and they've been working 15 days straight versus somebody who is fresh off of recharging time outdoors. I mean, that person that's outdoors, if they have the same skill level, is going to just perform better. They're going to do better at their job.
Yeah.
The one thing that people talk about when they join the family office too, it's funny because they want to leave a legacy, they want to do estate planning, they want to leave a lot of money. And of course, that's important. And the reality is when you take care of yourself today, if you do it in the right way with cash flow, it takes care of generations forever. So it's not that we want to put that off. We definitely need those planning pieces in place. But the one thing that, we'd always tell somebody is it's way more important to have a brain full of memories that you leave versus a bank account full of money. If you had no memories, you created no amazing life with your family, and you left them a bank account, I mean, that's just not going to be as impactful. They're not going to look back and say, wow, what a great life that he worked his whole life or she worked her whole life to leave this money. They want to look back. My wife hates it, but we take photos, and I call it funeral photos because I'm like, this is what that board is made up of. That I want my board, I want the funeral home to say we're out of space for photos because this guy lived such an amazing life and had so many memories with so many people that we don't even have enough space to fit it in this funeral home. And as crazy as that is, or as much as my wife hates when I talk like that, I mean, that is the life that I'm trying to build. And will I leave a ton of money to future generations? Yes, because I take control of my money to make sure I can live this life. So that is just an automatic side effect of it. But the memories are really what are the most important, that we're creating. And as far as the family office, that's another thing is people would think that the family office, when we work with these people, that either people are struggling financially or they make a ton of money and we're showing them how to turn into multi-millions. And the truth of the matter is, I had somebody ask the other day, what is your ideal client for the family office? And really, at the heart of it, it's somebody willing to take action, but at the heart of it, it is those people who just aren't satisfied with good enough. I don't care if you're a surgeon making $800,000 a year or your family medicine or internist making $200,000-$300,000. At the heart of it, that money is more than enough in all those realms to be able to live an amazing life. The biggest thing that sets somebody apart of whether we can help them or not is the ones that just say, you know what, I'm not satisfied with good enough. This isn't terrible is not the mantra that I'm going to live by. I want something more in my life. I'm going to go figure it out. Because when people have that heart and that desire behind them, I mean, 200, 300, 800. Granted, is it easier on 800? It is, but the ability to make that come true is no problem if you're making 200 plus.
Absolutely. Funeral photos. I love that. That's a great way to look at it. But as you were talking, one thing I was thinking about, and I don't know if I realized this in Wyoming, but definitely realized it once I got home, is that we're essentially accountability agents in some sort. If we have that ideal, family office member join us, and their family joins us, and they are go-getters, and they want to take action, and they want to build a life that they truly love, and we help them with the financial side of it. But really, we become accountability agents as well, so that as they have dreams and they talk to us, here's what our family's dreaming, here's things that we want to do. Now we can hold them accountable, right? We know what their financial situation is. We know the life that they want to live. We're kind of that bridge in between, and holding them accountable. Say, hey, you told us you want to make this happen. We can kind of hold your hand and walk you through those steps to get you to that point. But we're going to hold you accountable so that you actually do it, so that you don't have, regrets 20 years from now saying, oh man, I planned well financially. I used the family office as a financial resource to, build a trust and build all these different strategies that helped me build all this wealth. But I just didn't live my life the way I wanted to. I just used you guys like a financial advisor, and that's not really what we're for. We can be an accountability agent to say, hey, you've got these dreams, and we're going to help you live those out by being purposeful with what we're doing and being open communication to say, here's what you want to do. We're going to help you get there.
Yeah, 100%.
From a Wealth Wednesday standpoint, usually we're talking about different financial topics, but we went a little philosophical today. Talked about dreams. Hopefully, this was helpful to people. What final thoughts do you have, Mike?
Final thoughts. I kind of just walk people through, if you're listening, kind of the game plan that we do with people when we work with them personally. So when you have that dream, no matter what it is, just start with that first question of, if this was possible, how would I make it happen? And that removes that filter of saying, that's not possible, you couldn't do this, blah, 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 you got to wait till you're 60, whatever excuses and dream killers are out there. That removes them, because you're saying, okay, all those are true, but let's just pretend it was possible. How would I do it? So start with that question first. And then it just comes down to two things, money and time. So the first thing, if I walk you through the example of the toy hauler and the four-wheelers that we did, it literally was writing down, how much does this toy hauler cost? Okay, we know how much this costs. We need some four-wheelers. We need a truck. Write down what is actually the dollar amount that this dream costs, because most people make this huge dollar amount and they make it just outrageous, and they think, well, we don't have that money. We could never. All you got to do is say, if it was possible, how much would it cost? You write it down. Now you know the dollar amount. Now you have a goal for the dollar amount to make that dream possible. And then the dream is going to have some amount of time tied to it. So if you want to go on a trip for a month to Mexico for the winters, you want to come out to Colorado and just go four-wheeling for 2 weeks, whatever the case may be, there's going to be a time aspect of it. So then you just say, okay, to live this dream, how much time off do I need from work? How much time do I need to commit to this dream once I can achieve it financially? Then you'll have an answer. It'll be, a weekend, it'll be a couple weeks, it'll be a month, maybe it's a year, a whole sabbatical year, whatever the case may be. But now you know how much time. And then you start working that out to get the time. And now it's just a conversation of whether it's with the boss, whether you start working on your business to make sure that you can step away for that amount of time and things won't fall through the cracks. Whatever the case may be, all it is a dollar amount and a certain amount of time. And once you have those two, you can start building out the action plan to say, okay, how do we actually achieve this dollar amount and this much free time, like you call it, passive time. How do we achieve this much passive time and this dollar amount? Because once you achieve that dollar amount passive time, that dream is there. Now you just do it. So those are really the 3 steps, is say, if it was possible, okay, financially, what do we need? Okay, time-wise, what do we need? And then you just build your action plan out to go ahead and make that a reality.
Absolutely. Those are 3 great steps, just kind of laying it all out there on how to flow with that. My final thoughts are around mentorship and guidance. You said earlier in the episode, what really sparked you was a mentor, just saying, if it was possible, how would you do it? And so if there's people listening that have those same, aren't having those thoughts, but have these dreams, they just don't know where to go, find a mentor, find someone to guide you. Mike and I are happy to do it. Go to grandvision.co, reach out to us. You can schedule some time to talk to us and just say, hey, here's what I have going on. I just don't know how to do it. From a financial standpoint, we have the Doctor's Dollars 5-day financial challenge that's up and running. go out and build that foundational framework of your finances. And from there, just start dreaming, figure out what does that roadmap look like for me, based on where I am financially, where I want to be financially, where's my life today, from an enjoyment standpoint, or the adventure, we like to call it, like what type of adventure do I have now? Where do I want to be from an adventure standpoint, and how do I get there? But I mean, if you don't want to use doctors and dollars or, the Gray and Vision team, Mike and I, find a mentor, find someone that can guide you and give you great advice to keep you moving forward, so that you don't have a bucket full of regrets at the end of the road.
Yeah, one more thing, man. I hate to keep extending these episodes, but when something good. Pops up that I think could be valuable, I want to share it. So
absolutely.
You just brought up a great point, and you do have to have a mentor. And I'll say here's the reason, though, that you need a mentor most importantly is because there's so many dream crushers in your life right now. So you go and tell your family and friends, hey, I want to go to Mexico for a month. We're going to live there. The first thing people are going to say is, haven't you heard Mexico is dangerous? Haven't you heard that you shouldn't go to Mexico? How can you stay for a month? How are you going to be gone? Don't your kids need stability? How can you do it financially? How are you going to get time off work? You're going to hear every possibility of how that dream could not come to fruition from everybody who supposedly loves you in your life. They are going to say, how could you do that? No way. And your dream is going to naturally go to the wayside because you are surrounded by what, they call it devil's advocate, but the word devil's in the name for a reason, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's just crushing those dreams, and you are surrounded by devil's advocate, and they're not trying to harm you. They are trying to protect you and keep you safe. But in doing so, they are creating a life full of regrets for you. So the mentorship is kind of a double-edged sword, whoever it is. It could just be somebody that you know in your life that you don't pay or anything, but you kind of watch them, you model them, you say, hey, can we get a cup of coffee? I just think the way you live life is super inspiring. I would love to live life like that. That person's going to feel great that you look at them that way and want to share some of their ideas. But that mentorship serves that double purpose. Is first, it silences all the critics, all the people who think they're trying to help you, but they're creating a bucket full of regrets for the rest of your life. It silences those critics, and then it gives you faith because you have a mentor who's done it before and says, listen, I know it seems hard, but here's how you do it. When you hit an obstacle, you say, see, I knew this wouldn't work. And that mentor says, listen, I hit a ton of obstacles on the way. Here's how you overcome the obstacle. The reality is the more obstacles that you have to overcome to live that dream, the more fulfilling it is when you finally reach the end and you live out that dream. You're going to have a mentor that tells you that and gives you the faith that says this obstacle, don't look at it as a bad thing. Look at that as this is a great thing because so many people will give up here, but you're going to push through. Because if you don't have that mentor, right, what do you have on the other side? The moment you hit an obstacle, see, I told you so. Yep. I told you couldn't do it. I told you that's too hard. I told you. And you find yourself never chasing your dream. So I think that's the most important. I think it's hard to find mentors in life because there's not a lot of people living an amazing life. By default, if you're doing what everybody else is doing, it's going to be really hard to find those people who are living differently. But they're out there, and whether you pay for it, whether it's a family friend, whether it's somebody that you follow on Instagram and you just reach out and say, hey, that's awesome, I would love to do what you're doing, whatever it is, you do need somebody that you can dream with, that you can just say, you and I do it together sometimes. Mm-hmm. We have each other to kind of guide us and say, hey, that's an awesome dream. Go make that a reality. You could totally do that. And you need that in your life to silence those critics because as much as mom and dad and your best friend love you, the reality is their desire for you to stay safe is also, by default, a desire to crush your dreams. And it's not that they're trying to hurt you, but the reality is they are creating a lot of regrets, and you need somebody outside of that that's going to build you up and say, go for it. And if that is your family and friends or your mom and dad, you are so fortunate to have that in your life, to have somebody that says, you know what, go and do it. And I hope that's the mom and dad that, my wife and I are for our kids. I hope Absolutely. We can be those people. But I'm also a realist and realize that's just not common for most people in this world. Most of the people are, they're going to be the naysayers. The people who love them the most are the biggest critics of their dreams.
Absolutely. Great way to end it. I'm not even going to add anything onto that. We'll be back again with another Wealth Wednesday here soon. Good seeing you, Mike.
See you, buddy.